Nobody tips the help. Preston Cole said it loud enough for the whole diner to hear, and every fork in the room stopped halfway to every mouth. It was a Tuesday night in Millbrook, Oregon, rain turning the parking lot into black glass. In the back booth sat a woman in a thrift store raincoat, a cup of hot water in front of her, because that was all she could afford. Her name for the night was Rose Calloway. That was not her real name. The waitress had already told her the booth was for paying customers. Rose said she understood and stayed anyway, just needing a few more minutes out of the storm. That's when Daniel Reyes walked in, soaked through $7 in his pocket, and a face that belonged to a man who'd already spent his patience elsewhere that day. He wasn't there to be a hero. His daughter Mia was waiting above a laundromat, tracing the water stain on the ceiling the way she did when she was hungry and didn't want to say so. He'd promised her soup and grilled cheese tonight, split 2 ways, stretched to look like plenty. He was paying at the counter when he heard Preston again. Get her out. She's scaring off customers. Rose stood slowly, cheeks burning with a shame that wasn't hers to carry. I'll go, she said. I just needed to dry off. Then dry off outside, Preston said, and a couple of people near the register laughed. Daniel looked at his tray. He looked at the door, at the rain coming down sideways under the lot lights. Then he walked over and set the tray in front of her. She's eating with me tonight, he said. And you are? Preston asked, smiling without warmth. Just a guy who remembers being hungry, Daniel answered. He folded half his sandwich into a napkin, tucked it in his jacket for his daughter, and told Rose to eat while it was hot. She looked at him like he'd handed her something enormous. Because the woman in that coat wasn't homeless. She was Margaret Bellamy, owner of every restaurant with her family's name on the door, and what was folded in that napkin was about to matter, more than anyone in that diner could guess. Before we go further, if a stranger has ever shown you kindness when you needed it most, tell us where you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe small acts like this can still change everything, hit subscribe because this story is just getting started. Daniel didn't know who she was, and that mattered. Preston stepped closer, his shoe nearly touching the puddle at Rose's feet. Think this makes you something? He asked. I think it makes her warm for 10 minutes, Daniel said. A few people looked down at their plates. 10 years earlier, Daniel had a different life. Steady HVAC work. A wife named Claire, a porch light that stayed on. Then Claire got sick. Then came the bills. Then a promise made beside a hospital bed. Keep Mia safe. Keep her kind. Never let her think love has a price. Since then, every day was a negotiation with barely enough. Nights loading trucks off Route 9. Weekend handyman work for whoever had $30 cash. What scared him most wasn't hunger. He'd learned to hide that. It was the county services letter on his kitchen table, full of words like stable income, words built for people with 2 paychecks, not a father patching his daughter's coat with thread from an old shirt. Across the table, Rose took a small bite and had to look away. She'd noticed the napkin, the careful fold, the way a man saves something not because he has extra, but because someone he loves matters more than his own hunger. For the first time all day, the most powerful woman in the room felt something close to shame, because that morning, 31 floors up in Portland, Margaret Bellamy had watched Preston present a slideshow full of smiling families and phrases like community first, while food costs dropped and approval ratings climbed just a little too perfectly. What happened to the community meal program? She'd asked. Reallocated, he said. People were taking advantage of it. She looked at an old campaign photo and remembered her father's words. Food isn't just food, it's the first language of mercy. 3 days before, an envelope with no return address had reached her office. Photos of sealed edible food dumped behind the Millbrook store. A worker's complaint, marked low priority, closed with no follow-up. One handwritten line, ask about the man they suspended. She told no one. She borrowed a coat from a donation bin and disappeared into her own company to see what it actually looked like from the floor. Preston wasn't finished. You're making everyone uncomfortable, he told Daniel. Preston wasn't finished. You're making everyone uncomfortable, he told Daniel. Hunger makes people uncomfortable, Daniel said. I'm just putting a bowl in front of it. You do this a lot? Rose asked quietly. Only when someone needs it more than I do, he said. And do you need it? He looked at the rain on the glass and could have lied easily. Instead, he said, I have a daughter waiting for me. Her name is Mia. Then Preston's eyes narrowed, placing him. Reyes, you're the one from the warehouse, the one who filed that complaint about food getting thrown out. It wasn't a complaint, Daniel said. It was the truth. "You know what I think?" Preston said, voice low but carrying. "I think men like you love a cause because it distracts from your own failures." Daniel didn't answer that one. "Some insults are better left standing there, ashamed of themselves." Preston kept going. "Is this how you feed your kid? Giving away meals so people can post about it?" "Leave my daughter out of this," Daniel said. "She's part of the story, isn't she?" Preston answered. Then with a careless sweep of his hand, he knocked the tray. The bowl tipped, soup spread across the table and over Daniel's boot, and the whole diner went dead silent. Daniel knelt down and started cleaning it up himself. Not because Preston deserved it, but because his daughter had once asked why people should fix messes they didn't make. And he'd told her, because the world gets better when someone decides to make it better. Rose watched him on the floor, protecting everyone's dignity but his own, and understood that Preston hadn't just spilled soup. He'd shown her exactly what her own company had become without her, watching closely enough. Someone filmed part of it and posted it online, but only the part that made Daniel look like the problem. By morning, people who'd never once had to choose between rent and dinner were deciding exactly what kind of father he must be. At 6 a.m., his supervisor called to suspend him, pending review. "There's more to it," Daniel said. "I believe you," his supervisor answered. "But belief isn't paperwork." Mia found the county services letter on the table before he could hide it. "Are they going to take me away?" she asked. He knelt to her eye level and held her instead of answering, because some truths take longer than a morning to be safe enough to say. 31 floors up, Margaret watched the edited clip 3 times, the last time with the sound off, because lies reveal themselves faster in silence. "Pull every camera from that location," she told her assistant. 3 hours later, alone, she watched the real footage, Rose in the corner booth, the refusal, Preston's voice, Daniel setting down soup he could barely afford, then the part the public clip had erased, the comment about his daughter, the tray tipped on purpose, Daniel kneeling to clean a mess that wasn't his. The parking lot camera showed something else. Daniel walking Rose to the bus stop, taking off his own jacket in the pouring rain to put around her shoulders, waiting until the bus pulled away before he let himself shiver. Margaret paused on his hand pulling the folded napkin from his pocket to check on the bread inside, the way you'd check on something worth more than money. "Find him," she said. "For legal?" her assistant asked. "For justice." By noon she had his file, his 6-week-old complaint, respectful and ignored. His request for a modified schedule, denied by Preston, reason listed as low priority. A widowed father trying to feed his daughter. Marked low priority by a company built on feeding families. At 3 that afternoon, the boardroom filled with people expecting a damage control meeting. Preston sat up front with a prepared statement already calling Daniel's behavior disruptive. Margaret walked in last, still in the thrift store coat. "We have a strategy," Preston started. "No," she said. "You have a cover story." She played the footage in order, the corner booth, the refusal, Daniel's tray, Preston's comment about the daughter, the tipped bowl, Daniel on his knees cleaning a floor he didn't dirty. He filed false complaints, Preston tried. She pulled up the photos of dumped food and his approval emails instead. "He told the truth before any of us were brave enough to hear it," she said. "This company sells food. If hunger doesn't move us, we have no business being in this business." Preston Cole, effective immediately. "Your employment is terminated," she said, sliding the paper across the table. "Every complaint under your supervision will be reviewed. The advertising budget gets redirected into a permanent community meal program at every location. And Daniel Reyes gets a public apology before the sun goes down today." At 4:45, 3 quiet knocks landed on Daniel's door. It was Rose, no coat this time, holding a box of hot food and something like shame in her eyes. "Rose," he said. She shook her head. "Margaret Bellamy." Mia peeked around the doorway, and Margaret's face softened looking at her. "I owe you both the truth," she said. "Is this pity?" Daniel asked. "No," she said. "This is justice coming late." She handed him a folder. Suspension lifted. Back pay approved, complaint upheld, and a new position. Community Programs Coordinator. With benefits and steady hours, enough to make family services stop treating poverty like a character flaw. "I didn't ask for this," he said. "I know," she answered. "That's exactly why it matters." Mia held out half a cookie wrapped in a napkin. "Are you the lady my dad gave soup to?" Margaret knelt to her height. "I am, sweetheart. We share things here," Mia said. Margaret took it with both hands like it was sacred. 6 months later, every Bellamy's, Kitchen in the state had a small table near the window with a handwritten sign, reserved for anyone who's hungry. No explanation required. In Millbrook, beside that sign, there's a framed paper napkin with a small paper heart taped to the corner. Daniel never made speeches about it. He just showed up every morning and made sure nobody, in a wet coat, ever felt like they didn't belong. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments what you would have done if you'd seen Daniel give away his last meal to a stranger. And if you believe one small act of kindness can still change a whole room, make sure you're subscribed. There's another story just like this one coming very soon.